Good.
This mic or this mic?
Either one.
Either one. Okay. First of all, I want to say what an honor and a privilege it is to represent Lake Worth, and I'm so happy to be part of this community. So know that my door is always open for everyone in the community, and this is what we're here to do, is represent you. So we really appreciate that opportunity. We finished session on Friday. We have a $77.1 billion budget for the state of Florida. It's actually $10 billion higher than it was in 2009. So in 5 years, we've certainly expanded, and so in large part because there is finally some money available, so that's a good thing. And we've worked hard to get money for Palm Beach County. Some of the big local projects that we got were $7.1 million for a new Court of Appeals, location to be determined still, and $6 million for a campus of the Palm Beach State College in Loxahatchee Groves, and $171 million for the Everglades and Indian River Lagoon restoration. So hopefully none of those things will be vetoed by the governor, and we'll get all the projects that we want. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the bills. Everything is with the caveat that the governor has the option to veto anything. So some of the things I say may or may not turn out and ultimately to be the law, but these are the things that we did. In terms of your responsibilities, there was, as always, there was a lot of discussion in Tallahassee about preemption. But despite all that discussion, there really wasn't much done new this year in terms of preemption. We did not change any of the preemption requirements regarding gun control, so you still are prohibited from enacting any regulations regarding gun control. We did change one preemption requirement, and we actually made it better for you, and it has to do with vacation rentals and timeshares. So you can regulate and prohibit some vacation rentals and timeshares in your city. I think the exception is you can't regulate duration and frequency, but you can prohibit them outright, and you can say if the property's not being maintained properly and things like that. And I'm sure your attorney will be able to help you with that if that issue arises. The other law specifically for municipalities that passed had to do with meeting locations. It used to be, I think the law is you can only have a meeting within 5 miles of your municipality, and there was a problem with Okeechobee that had a meeting further away. So now if you want to have a meeting with another municipality and you want to do it in that other municipality and it's 5 miles away, the law was changed, so that will be beneficial. I like the mic, I should use it. So those are pretty much the specific items that have to deal with what you are. The biggest disappointment, and I'm sure all of you are wondering about it, and we're very sorry it didn't happen, was there was no legislation about sober homes. Senator Clements and Representative Hager worked really hard. Representative Hager's bill, in the end, called for voluntary registration of sober homes. Senator Clements was mandatory registration. For whatever reason, we could never get to the finish line on either bill. And next year, I will be the delegation chair, and I promise you all that will be one of our priorities. And I don't know, I know part of the voluntary issue was a result of the Americans with Disabilities Act issues. And so it may end up being voluntary, but we will hopefully get some sober home legislation in place next year. There was nothing done regarding the communication service tax this year, so it will stay the same. And the 175, 185 retirement plans, also nothing was done on that issue. There was actually a lot of progress on that issue. There was a compromise reached, and it was great, but then in the end, another part of pension reform was put on that bill, and it killed the bill. So I do think that we will get compromise on the 175, 185s for next year, hopefully. But we'll see, you know, I mean, it was a poison pill on that bill, and that happened again. There will be 3 constitutional amendments on the ballot that you should all be aware of in November. The first one has to do with land conservation and water projects. The second one, which everyone has probably heard of, is the medical marijuana ballot initiative. And we did actually pass one law this session about medical marijuana. It's for one specific strain. It's called Charlotte's Web, and it helps children with epilepsy. And and the governor has said he will sign it. So that's really exciting news that we're going to be able to help these children. So you'll have that ballot initiative, which will, coincide with that. And then the third ballot initiative was put on by the legislature. And I'm very concerned about it. And I just want to let you know what the situation is. In 2019, there will be 3 Supreme Court justices who will Florida Supreme Court justices who will have to retire because they will be reaching retirement age, which is 70. At the very end, without hearing it in any House committee, a bill was put through which says that that it will be on the ballot that the retiring governor, as he retires, can appoint the 3 new justices. So I'm not real happy. We didn't have a full discussion of it, and I have concerns about somebody who's leaving office and is no longer accountable to the people of making those appointments. So that will probably be a big issue that you'll see on the ballot in November. We did some pretty interesting, great legislation this year. We passed that undocumented immigrants can get in-state tuition, which is wonderful. It was probably one of the best things that we did this session. It was really wonderful, exciting for everybody. And we also passed some pretty tough legislation about sexual predators, people who are involved in human trafficking, and also, along with that, some protections for the actual victims of human trafficking. And then we're trying to address some of the issues about children in the Department of Children and Family system who have been killed or hurt, and we're trying to make that a lot better so that our parents or foster parents, whoever's taking care of our children, are working to do what they promised to do. So I have a lot more issues, but if you want to ask me some questions about it, we did pass a law about e-cigarettes, so they cannot be sold to anyone under 18 years of age. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Commissioners? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you again. A couple real quick points. Number one, you mentioned this bill that was just kind of passed through at the last minute. How does one do that when we can't seem to get that done at the beginning of the session?
It's a leadership goal.
So you're telling me the speaker pushed it through?
And the Senate president, yes.
So between those 2 individuals,
they can get anything they want.
All committees were bypassed.
In the Senate, I believe it might have had hearings in the Senate. We never had one hearing on it in the House.
Okay. Now let's talk about sober houses for a second. I am very disappointed, as I'm sure everyone in this room is very disappointed.
Oh, sir.
I'm really beginning to think that we're being, what's the word I'm looking for? I think we're not really being straight with the people of Florida on this issue. I think the legislature needs to step up and do something, and do something immediately. I personally would like to know what specific action items we need to be aware of, and maybe the citizens need to be aware of, going into the next legislative session, so we don't go 3 years of just running our guns on this issue. Is there some way we can?
I mean, I think we need to sit down with Senator Clemens and Senator Hager, who carried the legislation, and see what they say we should do going forward, because we really thought this was going to be the year. Everything looked like it was in place. So I wasn't, as intimately involved as they were, but let's talk to them and see what we can do.
It's my understanding that Senator Negron had something to do with it.
Yes, I understand. My understanding is Senator Negron would not hear the bill. That's my understanding.
And another thing that I think we all need to be aware of, it's been my personal experience in talking to members of Congress and their staffers. They have absolutely no idea of what this issue is about, sober homes.
Congress in Washington, D.C.?
In Washington.
Really?
They're looking at me like I have 15 eyes and I'm purple.
Wow.
They have no idea what we're talking about.
Wow.
And I think that we need to really recognize that, and we need to start reaching out to our members of Congress.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to find a wedge with the ADA.
Right,
And
correct.
it's got to be fixed
Right.
in Washington. I don't think the original 88 Act was intended,
No.
this is an unintended consequence. And it's having a very bad impact, a very significant unintended negative impact on our communities.
Absolutely.
And it's just a matter of
No
time
question.
before some very horrific things
I
begin
mean,
to happen.
I know that the voluntary portion that was agreed to was because it was being done in California. So this is happening all over the country, and it could be, you know, definitely a federal issue that we should be addressing on that level also.
Well, I'd really like, I don't know how we coordinate this communication chain, but I really would like, prior to the end of this calendar year.
Absolutely.
or
And
as soon
like,
as
I will
possible.
be the delegation chair,
Yeah.
so I will take it upon myself to coordinate that
Let's see what those
issue.
action items are, who do we need to talk to, what the pitfalls are, you know, as far as the ADA, if it's the way we're phrasing it, if it's, you know, whatever. But we can't go any longer like this, because it's, you know, there are people out there that are just thumbing their noses at local government, and they think this is a big joke, and it's not a joke.
No, it's
When you
not.
start bringing people into your neighborhood, we don't know who they are, and we don't know what their needs are, and I'm really concerned that some really bad things are gonna start happening. Thank you again.
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Marissa?
I want to thank you for being here, and also, one of my biggest concerns is sober houses. I'm going to call you tomorrow. I want you to come with me to Lake Worth, and I want to show you around exactly what sober houses look like to the Lake Worth citizens, because they're on every other corner. There's more coming, and I just want you to physically see, being that you're going to be the chair, I want you to physically see what it looks like in Lake Worth. And then my other question was e-cigarettes. Who's actually going to regulate that? What department will be regulating the 18 and over?
I guess it's the Department of Tobacco and, you know.
So they're actually
yeah.
gonna
I
take
would
that
assume
on
so.
just like a regular tobacco?
Yeah, exactly. They're treating it the same as they treat regular tobacco.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, just if I could follow up, and then Commissioner Zerbe, I'll gladly turn over the table to you. It's not about the legitimate ones, it's about the,
I understand.
it's about the garbage.
And I understand they're churning these people over and then putting them out on the street at 2
And they're still drinking and drugging and
Yeah,
doing all
yeah,
kinds of
yeah.
things.
No, I know it's a horrendous situation. And it's gotta be, I mean, I spoke with Todd Von Leeren and he said it's gonna be one of our #1 priorities.
It
this
has to
next
be.
month.
In addition to that, were there any things that were going on in regards to synthetic marijuana? I know that they had been working hard to try to get the synthetic marijuana, but the problem was that every time
I
they
was just-
banned something,
Yeah.
they changed the substance. and
I
they-
know we did pass some legislation. I think every year we pass legislation based on different formulas, and so we're always trying, but we're always behind the 8 ball, but we are always addressing whatever the formulas are to try and keep stopping that problem.
There's no way to blanket it by saying using any synthetic ingredient, you know, or using any.
I think that's probably overly broad, but, you know, I mean, I'm sure that Attorney General Pam Bondi has looked into that issue, and I know she always brings forth that legislation on that issue.
Commissioner Zerbe?
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to thank you, Larry, for coming. Maybe some of the areas to look at would be in the definition of what is treatment, because that's pretty much the specific clause in there that separates between the sober house or whatever versus an actual treatment area. Because we have one place here in Dartmouth and Dixie right now that's a meeting house, per se, in a commercial zone, that a lot of them will go there to have a meeting and have a discussion. But I would still say that any kind of discussion, therapy about things and that kind of activity happens at the sober houses anyway. And that's a form of treatment. Anybody will tell you that a lot of the psychological aspects of this happens at the places where they all congregate anyway. So I would think that anything that relates to that might be another area that we might see some way to at least allow the regulation for municipalities and all to happen. Because have you been to talk to folks in Delray as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
I mean,
I know they're facing, and Boca Raton has some
they've been
problems
pretty
too,
aggressive
so
too
it's,
without
yeah.
any real luck.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something we really, and I don't want to put it off another year. I agree. I think we need to get it addressed. We need to have a plan, go to the legislature, be ready, fight for it. I mean, I know we had a plan this year and it didn't succeed, but we have to succeed on this issue.
Commissioner McBoyd?
And I too thank you for coming. It's very helpful for us, and I think for those of us that are listening too. First, as an Everglades scientist, thank you for the support of Everglades and Indian River Lagoon. As you know, things are a little bit bottled up at the Corps of Engineers right now. The Water Management District did vote unanimously to support it as well, just a couple of weeks ago, so that's good. You mentioned preemptions. I remember a few years ago having seen something come down through probably through the attorney on gun control, that we're not allowed to do anything. I would send the message, as you can guess, with Lake Worth, it's something that it concerns me that we don't have any ability to be a little more restrictive on that. Sober homes, I think we've covered plenty well. And I thank you for your explanation on the third amendment that'll be on the ballot. That seems like a very unfortunate way for things to have been handled at the legislative level. So I hope that information will be out. And thank you very much for your support of educational opportunities.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Just wanted to follow up on somewhere else. Obviously, there's a lot that could be done before the actual session itself.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
No, we're not gonna wait till session. We will be ready beforehand.
And the other thing is, we might be well served if maybe the Palm Beach delegation and some others around the state could maybe put some talking points together. I think we really need to start getting up to DC and working these folks, because I really don't think they have any grasp whatsoever of what's going on. So if we can come up with a unified set of talking points that everybody in the state of Florida can use, that might help us a little bit.
Sure,
in the long
absolutely.
run.
Great idea. Thank you.
Commissioner, what you forgot one?
I forgot my biggest one, that I forget what they're called, but the National Climate Assessment Report, as you may know, came out just this morning. And it's, for me as a scientist, a very interesting step that the science folks finally said all these signs that we're seeing that you say, well, it could be climate change, which scientists have been very cautious on the whole of saying, well, it's too early to tell. I think the feeling is, no, it's not too early to tell. We are in some serious trouble. And as you well know, South Florida is kind of the big bullseye. So I would definitely encourage you, anything you can do at the state level to encourage anything for carbon reductions, or we're starting to move to mitigation.
Unfortunately, we actually passed a memorial at the state level on carbon reduction, saying that we didn't want to have to comply with the federal requirement, that we wanted to only deal with whatever we did in the state. But it's only a memorial, so it's basically the paper that it's written on. You know, you give it to Washington and they can do what they want with it. But that is sort of the feeling of the legislature, so I do want you to know that I voted against the memorial, but that is the feeling of the legislature. But the good news, I think, for next year, for next session, is our speaker designate. His name is Representative Crisafulli. He's from the Brevard area, and the Indian River is near his area, and I think his background is in citrus, and so water conservation is a very big issue to him, and I think we will take up the issue of water conservation next year, and maybe concurrently with that, hopefully we'll start to address some of the climate change issues at the same time. So I'm hopeful that because of his emphasis, I mean, they said some of the water projects were sort of put on hold this year, thinking that next year he will spearhead that issue. So hopefully we'll have some development on
Well, I appreciate your awareness of it and working with him.
Sure.
All right, last question. Where are the big bags of money for our infrastructure? I couldn't resist. If you haven't heard, we have needs, and I saw that Belgrade was getting $1 million.
Right, they got $1 million for roads and $1 million for water pipes. And I saw you guys have water issues also, I'm quite aware, so come to us, we'll see what we can do.
I'll be there every day, you
Okay.
just tell me when you're available and I'll be there.
But you never, I'm not no guarantees, but we'll try and do what we can.
And to that point, we'll have the actual designs for the various projects for the first time to really, and we'll look for your support.
We need your help, we know you're a friend to us, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Madam Mayor, one other thing, just wanted to thank Representative Berman. She's been very helpful on a lot of issues for the city, including the spring training facility. She has been providing some assistance, so thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, thank you and good
Thank you.
night. Please, well, I'm sure we'll be in touch and working together, and I'm sure that your other reps will probably come in, but I got in real quickly, so I'm sure you'll be hearing from more. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
again so
Thank
much
you.
for your time.